What if you could double your income as a dietitian by upskilling? And have you ever wondered how training to place a feeding tube at the bedside at the hospital as a clinical dietitian could advance your career? Today, I am talking with Hannah Randall, a clinical dietitian in Texas with over 6 years of experience in acute care, specializing in nutrition support for both adult and the neonatal populations. She recently became trained to place the Dobhoff feeding tubes at the bedside, assisted by a core track system, and was part of the core track team rollout at her hospital. So in addition to her clinical work, she's also been undergoing leadership training and was recently promoted into a leadership role. And with all that upskilling, she's now earning double what she made when she first started out as a dietitian. By the end of this episode, you'll know exactly how she expanded her scope, leveled up her career, and landed a promotion doing it. Stick around. Then go and find one skill that maybe you can start building on your own this week. Welcome to the Dietitian Career Success Podcast. I'm your host, Stacey Dunn-Emke. I run 2 job boards, NutritionJobs.com and ExerciseJobs.com, and a salary database, dietitiansalaries.com, with a salary calculator. I'm a dietitian here to help you as a healthcare professional find your dream job, learn how to build your modern resume, craft a LinkedIn profile that attracts opportunity, and how to confidently have conversations to make more money as a dietitian or a healthcare professional. I'm in the unique position to learn from both recruiters and job seekers, and I'm using those insights to help inform you. Think of this as your personal mastermind group to help inspire and motivate you, keeping your career development top of mind all the time. Whether you are here for a pep talk, want some conversation to remind you to always be ready for a new job, or need some solid, actionable steps to actually advance your career, you're in the right place, friend. This episode is brought to you by our featured top employers on Nutrition Jobs, including Compass Group USA Careers, Nourish, Nutrition That Works, the California Correctional Healthcare Services, and Healthcare Services Group. They all have so many jobs nationwide. I hope that you can apply to their jobs or just learn more about them. Head on over to NutritionJobs.com and forward this episode to a friend who you know needs to get a new job. And now back to our show and our featured guest, Hannah Randall. Welcome, Hannah Randall.
Hi, Stacey. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to chat with you and share all that you know with our audience. So you and I connected because a viral post that you sent on LinkedIn. You know, LinkedIn is one of my favorite social media platforms for our careers. It's been so great to learn about your accomplishments as a nutrition support dietitian and your recent training in nasal gastric tube feeding insertion. And I wanted to share that accomplishment and what you have done with our Nutrition Jobs community because I think it's super inspiring. But I've also been very interested in the expanding role of the clinical dietitian in a hospital setting as well. So I'm really excited to get into all this with you. Can you first share with us a little bit about your professional background, maybe how you got interested in the field of dietetics? Start wherever you want.
Okay. So I first became interested back in high school. We had an elective nutrition class and an elective class for medical professions. I loved both of those classes, and I realized that if I pursued a career in dietetics, it kind of combined them. And then during my internship, I found out I'm a clinical girl. I love clinical. Yeah, so I have about 6 years of experience in acute care nutrition now. I obtained a CNSC certification, a certification in nutrition support. And I have experience now working with adults and neonates for enteral and parenteral nutrition.
Wow, that's
And then, yes, very exciting, very different population. And then recently I became trained to place feeding tubes using the core track machine at my hospital. So it's very exciting times. I feel very lucky to be able to practice at the top of my scope as a dietitian.
That is fascinating. And that's why I am sharing you with everybody because I think everyone could learn and be inspired by what you have done. So, you've worked as a clinical nutrition support, certified nutrition support clinician. So, back in the day,
Mhm.
you and I were chatting before we hit record that I was a certified nutrition support dietitian. So, I always still use that nomenclature. And Sarah Griffin has taught me that's not what it is. It's the Certified Nutrition Support Clinician, which is a really massive accomplishment. It's a big, juicy exam. So, congratulations on that. At what point did you
Thank
decide that
you.
you want to become certified as a nutrition support clinician?
So pretty early on in my clinical career, I realized that was my favorite area of practice. So I started studying. I waited until I had about 1 or 2 years of experience, and then I started studying for the exam. And the company I was working for at the time did pay to get the certification. So I thought, why not? I ended up taking it, passing it, and it's really done wonders for advancing my career and opening the door for all these new opportunities.
That's fantastic. I'm so excited that you were able to do that. Did you then decide that you wanted to be able to learn how to insert the tube on your own, or did you see somebody else? Did you have a mentor who was also doing that? Or tell us about the evolution of that process.
Yes. Okay. So when I was in school, we didn't learn about placing feeding tubes. That wasn't a part of our practice at the time. The most hands-on thing we did was the nutrition-focused physical exam, and I think that was kind of new at the time. So over the years, I started noticing that our interns that we were taking were learning how to place nasogastric tubes in their curriculum. So I was like, "Huh, that would be cool. I wonder how how I can do that at this point." And then I found out that the other hospitals in the system I work at had started doing that. They had these teams of people trained to place NG tubes with the core track machine. And those teams consisted of nurses, dietitians, and speech therapists. So I thought that was really cool how interdisciplinary it was.
That's great.
And
So
then
then, yeah, so go ahead and tell us a little bit more then.
Yes, so I heard we were gonna start rolling out with it at our hospital, and I mentioned to my leader, like, "Hey, I would be interested in learning that." Even though I was petrified of touching patients and dealing with bodily fluids, I still decided to get trained, and it was a process. They sent me to another hospital in the system to get trained. Um, I thought that I was going to try it on a dummy first, my first one. You would think, but, it turned out, nope, we're going straight to placing it on real people, so,
Holy
um
smokes, that's incredible. I was going to ask you what the on ramp was. At what point did you end up seeing a real patient? But you just answered that. That is fascinating. But I like what you said previously that you didn't like the whole bodily fluid things or being able to work directly with patients that was out of your comfort zone, and you still did it anyway. I love that. I think that's really great for others to hear, other clinicians to hear that, and to know that this is something that they too can proceed with if they felt that way also.
Exactly, yes, that's probably the theme of my advice is to just get out of your comfort zone, even if something sounds intimidating, just do it. Because yes, I was very scared of, all that comes with placing a nasogastric tube. But I was surprised at how easily I got past that once I started placing the tubes.
That's good to know as well. And
Mhm.
so, were you able to? I'm actually in awe of your initiative that you talked to the person, your boss, and then you helped create this opportunity based on these conversations, based on your own initiative. And I think that is also very helpful for others to hear that it takes a little bit of self promotion or self improvement to start the process process. The other big question I think that a lot of people out there is wanting to know is how much time from the time that you started the training with the company to the time that you were flying solo, like what was that duration or
Mhm.
how many patients did you get to practice on first?
Yes. So, first we got the didactic training from the company. So that was just a classroom day. And then they sent me over to another hospital to place my first 10 tubes. And after I got 10 tubes, that's when I was competent. So I ended up placing 10 tubes in 2 days.
That's a big hospital.
Yes, yes, very high acuity burn unit. So there's a lot of opportunity. And I learned from very experienced core track clinicians. And I also had the rep there from core track with me too to help any problems that come up for me to understand what's going on.
That was one of my questions. You and I were talking offline about the relationships that I created with all of the medical sales reps while I was working as a clinical dietitian. And so, were you able to create a good relationship with the Cortex sales rep? Were you able to work with them or ask them like 1,000 questions, or what was that relationship like?
Yes, we developed a very good relationship. They were there every step along the way. Um, in the room while we were placing tubes, they were there to help answer any questions. And then afterwards, after CoreTrack got implemented in my hospital, they would follow up and see how things were going and help any questions that may have come up. And yeah, so they were a huge support, and I definitely appreciate everything that I learned from them.
Yeah, that's interesting. Can you give us a little nomenclature background? So, when I was working as a clinical dietitian, it was called a Dobhoff tube.
Mhm.
Is that the same, or just a different company, or is there any a distinction? I'm wondering if dietitians are working in a clinical setting and there's already an approved provider for the feeding tubes. How do they become certified or trained in the process of inserting if there's not going to be a big rollout for a new company?
Mhm.
How does that work, or what are all the terms that people might need to know?
So, from what I understand, a Dobhoff tube is a type of nasogastric tube, and we do have Dobhoff tubes at our hospital, and that's what we use to place with CoreTrack.
Aha.
So, if your hospital doesn't have the machine, then that would be a blind placement. So I'm not experienced in that, but nurses do it all the time. So I'm
Right.
sure you could, if you were in that situation, you could reach out to the nursing staff to learn a little bit more from them on how
Yeah.
they place.
All right. So can you give us a little behind the scenes, like what happens? So you're there. I'm sure you've got protective clothing on, and you've got your
Mhm.
gloves on. Maybe you even have like goggles on. What's the next thing you do? Like you've got the tube in your hand. What's the next thing that you do? Can you walk us through the actual insertion?
Sure, yeah. So you have your tube in your hand. You want to put lube on it so that it goes down easily. And if the patient's awake, of course, you explain what you're about to do. But if they're intubated or sedated, that makes it a tiny bit easier because hopefully that means they don't move around too much. So then once you get it lubed up, just insert it. And it's a downward motion. So once it gets past the mouth or nasal cavity, it pops up on the core track monitor how it's going down the esophagus, then into the stomach, and
Oh,
then
okay,
yes, so
great.
mhm,
So
we
you
can
can see
see
it
where it's going.
traveling down. Oh, that's fascinating. Okay.
Yes. So sometimes the doctors want it placed in the gastric area, and sometimes they want it post pyloric.
Hmm.
So we can do either of those using the monitor. Gastric is pretty simple, but getting it post pyloric kind of takes a little bit of maneuvering.
And they're just
Sometimes
doing
you have
that
to
with your
be,
hand, just sort of moving it around.
yeah, just feeding the tube, and if it gets coiled, pulling it back and trying again. Sometimes peristalsis can be our friend and help take the tube into the duodenum. So it's really all about patience at that point.
Yeah, yeah. Well, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, that's super interesting, Hannah. I'm so glad you shared all of the behind the scenes, like juicy details. Do they still do X-rays afterwards to see where it's located, or do we just assume that it's in the right spot because of the technology?
We still perform an X-ray afterwards to confirm the placement. But the good thing about using the core track monitor is it reduces the amount of X-rays compared to a blind placement.
Yeah, good. Okay.
Mhm.
That was fascinating. I'm so appreciative. Okay, the other big question that's on everybody's mind, they're patiently waiting to hear, is how has this advanced your career? Like what has it been for you? There's money, there's, other relationships with
Mhm.
the multidisciplinary team, just how you're feeling about the skills that you've gained. So maybe start with the big question everyone has, money. How has this impacted your pay range?
Yeah, so I think core track was definitely a part of it, becoming trained in that, along with other things I was trained up on, like the NICU and having a CNSC. Um, I also, over the past year, did a leadership program to help build leadership skills. And so about a month ago, I did get promoted to a nutrition coordinator position, which is kind of like a lead dietitian position in my department.
Oh,
Um,
congratulations. And
Thank you.
did your hospital support the leadership modules or the training, or was that through another contract food service company?
Yes, it was done through my hospital. They have a program for emerging leaders that you can be nominated for.
Aw. That's exciting. Wow, you are a
Yeah.
go-getter. Like you are making it happen. And I think that's very inspiring to hear that you're not stagnant in your position, that you've gone through your internship and all of your didactic training behind you, and you're not just sort of calling it in or whatever. It sounds like you're really moving up. And I find that really inspiring. I think others will as well. Another question for you is, what is it like now? What's your relationship like now with the hospital staff when you're up on the unit, whether it's the burn unit or the ICU or the NICU? Is your relationship any different with the nursing staff, maybe the PAs or the physicians?
Yes, definitely. So I think becoming trained in core track and helping train the nurses at my hospital in core track, I've improved my relationships across the board. I just have a better relationship with a lot of the leaders and a lot of the nurses. They know who the dietitians are and what we do. I will say after we got trained and we went up to start placing the tubes, some of the staff was kind of confused, like, "Oh, the dietitian's here to place the tube." So that takes a little bit of time to build the trust, but I think overall, it's been really good at elevating our department.
That's great. I think that observation of somebody being competent in charge and doing something that's unique is really helping others in our profession of dietetics as well. I think that's really good. Again, it's just like what they see is what they know. So the more dietitians doing having advanced roles within the hospital system on a floor for patients' care, I think is all very beneficial. And especially if it's increasing your pay range, all of that comes together with a nice tidy bow of thank you so much. That's really good. That's really
Yes,
exciting.
absolutely.
I sort of switch gears a little bit. I'm curious about like what your day looks like. What's the day in the life of Hannah working as a certified nutrition support clinician, NG tube inserter? What does that look like? How many patients a day are you typically seeing, or what does your day typically look like?
Yes, so you probably know this from your clinical days, but no 2 days are the same. And that's what I love about it. But typically, I still see patients. I still see about 10 patients a day, give or take. So I start my day screening my patients. At my hospital, the dietitians are in charge of renewing all the TPN orders. So I renew all my TPN orders on my unit. I go see patients. At any point, a core track consult could come up and to go place a feeding tube. So we try to do those as soon as they come up so that patients can get nutrition. So usually about one or two a day. It's kind of hit or miss sometimes, and we do have a team, so it's not always me that is going up there. And then in addition to that, I'm also involved on some hospital committees, and we're working on some quality improvement projects. So we stay pretty busy.
That's awesome. That is really good. I'm hoping that you're documenting all of your successes every week in your work journal and putting that on your resume and your LinkedIn profile. You've already been magnifying the word about all of your accomplishments on LinkedIn. I think that's really great. And it's very inspiring for other dietitians. I was going to ask you about what skills have helped you be successful in your role. Which ones were you born with? Which ones are you developing? But I'm going to answer some of that for you. I think you've got a
Okay.
lot of initiative. I think you are seeing yourself as the one person who can help advance your own career. And I love that. Again, it's very inspiring, and it's a great step in the direction of advancing your career. So maybe you could just answer what skills you were born with and which ones you're sort of learning along the way.
Well, thank you for that. I think naturally I'm very curious and I want to learn all of the things. So that's helped me. But something that I really had to work on, and it's something I'm continuing to work on with the leadership training, is my communication, speaking up, um, developing relationships, because I can be naturally reserved and I'm happy like not talking to anyone, but that's you're not going to get anywhere if you just keep to yourself all the time and you keep your desires to yourself. So I've been really working on communicating that with my leader and things I want to accomplish, and I'm lucky to be supported and given these opportunities.
It's good. I think you raised something that's important. If you're wanting to advance your career, being in the leadership program or on that track, and then being in these committee meetings with people, the quality assurance or improvement or any hospital committee, like you just can't be silent in there, right? You've got to be able to represent both yourself, but also your department or your profession. It's sometimes it's looking outside of ourselves and thinking about the bigger picture, both your career, but also others who might be coming up behind you that could benefit from your voice. So that's very, very helpful. I'm glad that you brought that up, that it's not always natural. I think we think of leaders as these, the drama kids who decided to become dietitians who have great voices and excellent public speaking abilities and great relationships or natural salespeople. And that's not always the
Hmm.
case. I think a lot it can be learned, and that is very valuable for other people to hear and again be inspired by. So thank you for sharing that. All right. I've got my final question. I always like to end on this question because dietitians like to think about our pay, our salary, our compensation. And as you know, dietitians are typically not satisfied with their salary and compensation. What is your advice to dietitians wanting to make more money?
Well, let me see. So like we've talked about earlier, earning an advanced certification really helped propel my career forward and get me qualified for roles that were more higher paying. I think learning as many skills as you can and specializing, whether it be diabetes, oncology, nutrition support, whatever it is, keep getting specialization, and those higher paying roles, you will be very desirable for those.
I think you're right. And my site, dietitiansalaries.com, has demonstrated that over and over again. Those with advanced certification, recognized certification, are the ones who end up making more money, sometimes $8,000 to $15,000 a year more than somebody who doesn't with the same number of years of experience or education background besides the certification. So thank you for echoing that. I
Mhm.
am really thankful for all that you have shared. And I think it's very insightful for others to learn about this and how they can also advance their careers. You and I connected on LinkedIn. You guys, I'm going to share with you her LinkedIn address as well. You can connect with Hannah over there. Is there anything else you wanted to share or make sure that the listeners knew about?
Yes. Okay. My last piece of advice: don't wait until you feel completely ready before saying yes to opportunities.
Oh, that is
And
so good.
thank you. Yes, and definitely feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn if you want to connect. I love talking to other dietitians or aspiring dietitians.
Thank you so much. Everybody, I'll put all of our links and the resources down below in the show notes. Again, Hannah, thank you so much for being here and sharing your expertise.
Yes, thanks so much for having me.
Okay, wasn't that a good one? Here are my top takeaways from our conversation with Hannah. Number one, certifications open doors and they pay off. Number two, discomfort is part of growth, apparently. Lean into it anyway. Number three, say yes before you feel 100% prepared. I have heard this so many times and I love that one. Number four, build relationships across the care team, especially if you're working in a clinical position. Number five, communication is a learnable skill, not just a personality trait. We learned that from Hannah, and I loved that. All right, now if you're looking for a job or you're just browsing to see what your next step could be, go to nutritionjobs.com or exercisejobs.com. Loads of non-traditional jobs, traditional jobs, consulting positions, full-time, part-time, remote, hybrid remote, and of course, in-person jobs nationwide. Big towns, little towns, don't miss out. You can sign up for my email alerts for jobs that meet your search criteria. You should also create a super simple resume profile on NutritionJobs. That can be set up in just a few seconds so that employers can find you. Easy peasy. Do subscribe to the list, my free Dietitian Career Success weekly newsletter on nutritionjobs.com, where you can find lots of career how-to freebies as well. Please subscribe to or follow this show. If you found this episode helpful, I would be so grateful if you could please rate this show up to 5 stars so I can tell my mom that I'm helping people. And speaking of helping people, please share this episode with a friend, a relative, your student, your intern, your mentee, or your boss. And follow me on most all social media platforms at Stacey Dunnemke and Nutrition Jobs on LinkedIn and Nutrition Jobs on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. And by the way, this is a career podcast. My guests are healthcare professionals, so I need to let you know that the information shared on this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only, and it's not intended as medical, nutrition, or career placement advice. Listening to this podcast does not create a practitioner client or coach client relationship. Consult your own qualified healthcare professional, licensed dietitian, career advisor, attorney, or other appropriate professional before making decisions based on the information shared here. The views expressed by my guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of me, your host, and my companies or the guest affiliated organizations. Whew. All right. Thank you for listening. Until next time.